Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. We're sitting here in the studio, John and I, with Alex and Kevin from Latitudes. Frank and Ernie are literally sitting in the peanut gallery. But before we get into the podcast, so I posted a picture not long ago. Actually, I made a meme of this Jeep with an arrow in the hood. And we needed some clarification on that. I mean, people were calling me out saying that it was photoshopped. And I mean, there was a guy who went so far as to break down exactly how it was photoshopped and all of the reasons why it couldn't possibly be real. And, we had a lot of our listeners and Patreons, say we need to have some sort of a clarification of what exactly happened. And John ditched me. He went on vacation. He said, I got a happy wife, happy life. I'm out of here. I'm taking my Jeep and I'm heading north. And we got him back now, so now you have a chance to tell the story and kind of defend yourself.
Well, I wish it was photoshopped. Let me just put it that. But it wasn't. It was right after I got my new PSE bow. I had it all set up. But there was a couple little things. I'd been shooting it the night before. I was out at the end of the driveway. It was like 105 yards. And I was hitting the bag consistently and stuff, but I was still seeing like a little bit of a kick. So the next morning I got up, went out with the dogs. It was like 6 in the morning. My wife took off to work. Kids were still in bed. Came back in the house, put the dogs in. And I was like, I seen the bow hanging there. I'm like, well, maybe I should try the Full Metal Jacket with a 125 grain head and the brass insert and all that, bare shaft. But I'd been working on another project, so normally I shoot with my target on top of the garbage can. And it's normally off to the side. Well, all that stuff was out. So the table I had set up, I was working on, I'm like, well, I just threw my block on top of that. Threw my paper tuning rack up, grabbed the bow, stood back. I drew back, and as soon as I drew back and went to center my peep, I looked, and I could see that. I'm like, oh, shit. My sight's still at 105, but I'm like, oh, I'll just aim, accordingly.
Famous last words.
Yeah. Kentucky windage.
And I'm pulling through, and all of a sudden, there was no sound of hitting the block target. It was just paper and tin. Like, and I was like, oh my God, my Jeep is parked right outside the garage door. And so I went running out.
And what is this Jeep? Is it just like my old 97 Wrangler?
No, it's my brand new Jeep I just got last year. It only has, at that point, only had 7,000 miles on it. So,
wow.
So I went running out, and sure enough, I look over and there's the unicorn Jeep, the Full Metal Jacket sticking right out of the hood, and I bent over and just about puked at that point.
Oh, jeez.
So I got over there, and then I was just telling the story. I pulled the arrow out of the hood, and I spiked it on the ground, and it went flying by my face, practically put my eye out, and then I'm like trying to swat it out of the air so it don't bounce on the top of the Jeep. So yeah, if I would have had I might still have the footage on the security cameras of that. I mean, it would be a pretty good TikTok probably. But so yeah, it was not photoshopped. Shortly after that, my wife called, and I was doing my best to, not act like there was something wrong.
Nothing going on here.
But yeah, like 10 minutes later, she calls me back again. She's like, what's going on? Because you don't sound right. I'm like, well, I just shot a hole through the Jeep. She's like, what? What about the garage door? I'm like, yeah, it went right through the garage door. I said, that's not a big deal. I can fix that, no problem. But, so yeah, luckily though, if I were to try to do it, I probably couldn't have hit it in the most perfect spot, in a more perfect spot than I did. It was like right on the crease of the hood, went right through, at least it's aluminum. and then that arrow being as heavy and stout as it was, it just perfect bullet hole right through, but it hit the hood latch.
Perfect tuning.
And it was a perfect bullet hole through the garage door. I mean, there was no tear at all. But so yeah, it's that was quite a while ago. I mean, it took quite a while.
So the picture was staged, like that wasn't the arrow.
Well, that was the arrow that was in it. Yes, that was a staged arrow. It was one of my old Total Archery Challenge arrows that I broke, and it had like the red, white, and blue fletchings and the red wrap. So I was like, well, it was my clown badge of honor. I'm always talking about these clowns, and you're going to be wearing the clown nose after that. Well, I got the king of the clowns after that. So yeah, it was on it for a few days, inside family. But so now it's got a nice little bug guard on it.
Which looks great.
Right.
Looks great.
I might have to sell one of my bows to get a new hood. I did want one of the Rubicon vented hoods, but yeah.
So, like I said, I just wanted to clarify that because, we got a lot of heat from it, and John was gone. He didn't get a chance to defend himself, or I don't know that you're like, I did too shoot through my hood. Like,
I'm just gonna drill a hole in my brand new hood, and put an arrow in it, and say, yeah, I shot it.
Yeah, but like I said, I just wanted to do that. So, but yeah, so in the studio tonight we've got Alex and Kevin, 2/3, I guess, of Latitudes, and if you haven't heard of them, they're a saddle company out of Michigan, and we're gonna dive into that, but as we always do, I want to get a little bit of background on who we're talking to, their style of hunting and kind of everything. So if you guys want to give us some introductions and kind of dive into that, we can proceed.
Sounds great. Start.
You want me to start?
Sure.
So I'm Alex Chop. I am part of Latitude Outdoors, obviously. One of the guys that Kevin came to when he had this crazy idea for this modern two-piece saddle. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, just like Jake and Kev, Foresthill Central High School, then went on to University of Michigan, and that's where I actually met Kevin. Hunting-wise, I started, I guess, the learning process with my dad when I was really young, 6-7 years old. He took me to the UP. He refused to hunt in the Lower Peninsula just because I think he liked to make it as hard as possible on himself. I'm not really sure why. He never shot a deer. But anyway, so I always went up there. That's where I learned to, he taught me all reading sign, and I'd help him set up stands, and that's really where I caught the bug, so to speak. Now since then I started hunting, shot my first deer with a shotgun, and then immediately moved to the bow, and have been religiously bow hunting ever since. Never had any private land to hunt. Unfortunately, I would love to have some. I have nothing against private land, but I've always been battling it out on public, and it's taught me a lot. And so I've hunted probably, 80% of the public property in Michigan. I'm an explorer. That's part of the reason I love I love new spots. I do, and so so I really enjoy it. In terms of managing a job, I have a full-time job too, along with Latitude Outdoors. So a lot of my hunting is done in the rut when I take time off and when my odds are the best, as with most of us with full-time jobs. So that's where I focus most of my energy is on those rut spots.
Sure. So Kevin Leach, co-founder of Latitude Outdoors, with Alex here. Our third partner, Jake Mattel, couldn't be here tonight. As Alex mentioned, we are all still working day jobs right now. So it's very, very busy, just ahead of hunting season like we like it. But born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I live here now as well. I don't know if Alex mentioned, but him and Jake are on the east side of the state, so we cover a pretty wide net across the state of Michigan. Went to Catholic Central High School right here in town, went on to U of M. That's really where we all met. Jake's actually kind of the glue with in terms of how Alex and I met. His dad was my surgeon. I have an athletic background. I played football at U of M and all through high school. So as far as hunting is concerned, I grew up around it. My dad's been bow hunting in Michigan, primarily in public land for over 50 years. He's got some really interesting stories about walking through culvert drain pipes and shooting things with his recurve back in the day. But grew up around it, did kind of more, shooting at squirrels and things when I was younger. Then there's kind of a gap from a hunting standpoint for me. I mentioned the athletics. That took up a lot of time. We're both very passionate fishermen as well, so did a little bit more of that. That's just more accessible in terms of when you got a small gap or window of time and you don't have a bunch of private land to hunt on, because I didn't grow up with that either. Really dove back into the deer hunting thing hard after college. We can get into, in terms of how Latitude Outdoors got started, but I think I hunted out of a tree stand 7 times, shot my first deer on that 7th hunt, and spent 6 hours dragging it out of a swamp with a tree stand on my back. So I wasn't too happy with that afterwards, and the tree stand, went in the garage afterwards and started using these things. So, that's my background.
So talking about that Latitude Outdoors thing, like how did it get started? But right now it's saddles, I guess, and everything. I guess all of the companies and many of the companies that we've talked to more recently have the outdoors moniker, where John would be the best to kind of weigh in on this, but we started this thing. And he wanted it to be like all encompassing. And so the hard part is with, everybody and their brother out there is such and such outdoors. That's the catchphrase, the catch-all, the terminology that's used. And so John is much, I wouldn't say that I despise fishing, but it's not like on my list of 10 favorite things to do. I can tell you that. And where John, it's probably it might be like tuning bows and then fishing and then bow hunting. Like I don't know.
Well, like what you're saying, it's more accessible. I mean, I have 4 kids now. My youngest will be 17. So there was a lot of years where I couldn't just go and be in the woods when I had 4 kids and sports and school and just be gone. Where fishing, you could always just slip out, and my daughters would love to go out fishing and take a nap in the boats.
Sure.
They'd come out with me hunting too. I remember, going out scouting with them on my back, but it's just you're not going to go sit in a tree stand for 3-4 hours with, a little one.
Yeah.
Where you go out in a boat, they might take a nap or they can,
Well, hell, when the last time I went walleye fishing with them, you caught more fish out of Frank's boat here than we did in Au Gres. And Elena, your third daughter, was sleeping in the boat. And Jet was
my son, and it was me, my son, and then my youngest daughter, and she fell asleep, and Jet hooks a fish, and he's like, he flings it in the boat, and it's bouncing off his sister's head while she's trying to take a nap, and it's still a big funny joke, but that's what I was kind of hoping for, where it'd be, like an outdoors thing. Sure. But like I said, Adam, he don't really care for fishing. So.
And I don't have anything against fishing like at this point, but I mean, I guess like, for you guys, like if you want to try to like jump into a space, right? Like, it's to some degree, it's like search engine optimization. Like everybody's outdoors. Like if you want to be like, okay, so like bow hunter, at that time there wasn't that much stuff. Like at this point, I feel like we could talk fishing or whatever. Like we've got enough people, and I would say that the people that are involved in bow hunting are also involved in fishing, save myself. That it's not that far fetched of a thing, but so back to the original question, as far as like Latitude Outdoors and the vision and who are you, like what is it as a company outside of just being like, are you guys like, we're just saddle to the core and that's it? But with the outdoors moniker, it kind of leads into many other things.
Maybe suggest something else. I mean, I would say right now we are saddles at the core. I think it's important in starting any venture that, you make sure you're an expert in whatever it is you're starting with, right? I mean, if someone's going to spend their hard-earned money on a premium type of product like a hunting saddle, you better make sure that, you've dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, you've done everything from a development standpoint. You understand the thing backwards and forwards, as well as sort of the marketplace and what the customer is looking for. So certainly you have to start somewhere, but we also want to pigeonhole ourselves into just one thing longer term because we do have a variety of interests. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main goal for this project is to be able to merge our passions with our careers. I mean, that's me for sure. I can work isn't work if it's your passion, and I mean, I can work all day on these saddles, no problem. And I think that all of us kind of share that goal and that desire to do something we're passionate about. But look, you got to pay your bills, right? So Latitude Outdoors, we're very, very passionate bow hunters, but we have some other passions too. And, that's part of business, is being able to adapt and, I guess, change with whatever environment you're in. I mean, when we picked the name Latitude Outdoors, we didn't know that we're going to give it a shot, right? And so now, this is obviously, and always has been a focus for us, but we wanted to, kind of like Kev said, you never know. I mean, we might have other products besides just saddles, but they are going to be hunting related, and we're going to be a hunting company. That's our focus. So
for this podcast, it's very interesting. It's awesome that these guys were able to make the trip. I mean, Kevin's relatively close. Alex is across the state, but to come here and hang out, and then for the people, like, basically for our Patreons, like, I put it out there, like I said, if anybody's in the area and they want to come and check out, like, because we'll get into it a little bit further, but for saddles, you can't just say, like, you can't go to a store and try one on. You can't, I mean, we've said that for the longest time. And, so we just put it out there and said, hey, any of our patrons that are in the area want to check out saddle hunting, like, whatever. And, so we cooked out, and, we kind of planned on, Frank's over here saying I cooked out,
That was delicious, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing.
But, so I said, we're going to have food. We'll do everything we can, and had a lot of people show up and kind of hung out. And this podcast is an hour later than we were going. John's going like, God damn, I gotta get to bed. Things are happening.
I'm missing a meeting with my hunting partner in Montana, so I had to postpone it.
But for this, for the passion part of it, it wasn't that we didn't have time or we weren't going to be able to do it. It was like, I couldn't pull you guys away from the guys that were here just talking. And I mean, like I said, that's kind of like why this whole podcast started, is because this is kind of like what we love and what happens organically when you bring people together that have the same, views and everything else. So, we really appreciate you guys like making the trip over here. Now, as far as the saddles go, it's a hard, and I got to apologize first of all to like our listeners, because I feel like this has become the Bowhunter Chronicles goddamn saddle hunting podcast, because like it's just one of those deals where it's one of those things that's incredibly relevant. And so people have questions, and, our job as a podcast is like to answer the questions of the listeners. And so to some people, they want to know how to kill big deer, and we're going to ask Alex how to do that because, he's got to be the guy. But the fact of the matter is that with this equipment, there's so much going on right now in, it's obviously taken off because of, Tethered and their extreme marketing, and, and they're awesome guys. I mean, the problem is that we're friends with everybody in the saddle hunting industry, it would seem like, and it's hard to be like, well, we can't talk about this or we can't talk about that. But everybody that we talk to are people that we want to talk to, and they just happen to saddle hunt or whatever at this point. So what is your guys' history with saddle hunting? Because it'd be very easy to say, all right, we're smart guys. We have engineering ability. These things aren't that freaking complicated. People are making them out of paracord now. I wouldn't recommend that, but I mean, it definitely. I've seen them. But aside from saying this is a business opportunity, what's your history with saddle hunting, and then what is the basis for the products that you guys have right now?
Well, as I mentioned, I mean, when I started, so I've been saddle hunting for a little over 5 years now. As I mentioned, it took me 7 hunts with a tree stand to realize that a saddle was a better option for my style most of the time. And I didn't really get into my style, but it's public land like Alex, and it's, I try to use my youth, I guess, to be the guy that can go deeper and further in a lot of situations in really nasty swamps. In Michigan, we have a lot of them. I hunted out of an Anderson sling originally. Mentioned my dad has grown up doing this for a long, long time. He had an old Anderson sling that he took out of the package one time that he got for $35 at Meijer. Right. So you can kind of see how that was the basis for what ultimately became this method saddle, really that 2-piece design and the flexibility that gives you. Obviously after a couple of years of doing that, things like the Saddle Hunter Forum sprung up and started to get popular. Tethered came out. There's some existing brands like Arrow Hunter. I started to try those, more commercial saddles that were coming out, and I just felt like there were some gaps in what I was used to, but also what I was looking for. Because what I was used to also wasn't optimized, and I'm one of the engineers on the team. I'm the guy that's always trying to optimize things and tinker, always changing my equipment, looking for something that's a little bit better year over year. So I would say that starting this and developing these designs was grounded in that, looking for something better in really tough hunting situations. Obviously, everyone knows Michigan has a lot of bow hunters, a lot of pressure, but really getting in deep. Most of the time when I hunt, I'm nothing less than hip waders on the way in, right? So being able to do that, pack in and out, hunt any tree, anytime, all the benefits that people are used to hearing about with saddles was applicable. But I was looking for something that really minimized bulk on the way in, but I could sit in it all day when I got there. And I just was not finding both of those in what was out in the market. So I started building exactly that, or something that ultimately what we feel like became that. And at the time I was actually traveling every week for work to a city in northern Michigan called Midland. And I literally started buying seatbelt webbing and bringing it with me on these trips and pinning and sewing things together in a hotel room. That's really how this started. And I'd pull a rope in the front and I'd see how it kind of sat on my body. And then I'd get kind of the concept of my next prototype put together in a hotel room, bring it home when I came home for the weekend, sit it in a tree, and then I'd modify it. Did that for, I'd say, I mentioned it to you guys, but maybe about 3-4 months.
I thought it was crazy.
Yeah, these guys hadn't saddle hunted at the time. I think you were a preset stand guy primarily, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had messed around. A similar story. My dad had an old Anderson sling. I messed around with it a little bit, but look, the craze back then was like your lone wolf tree stand, so I moved to that, and then I got sick of carrying that around, so I started buying junk stands, and I had my system down. I would preset my stands. And I did that for years, and I had it all dialed in as much as I ever get dialed in. I'm not a gear junkie, honestly, but, and then Kev, he started buying all these saddles. One thing he does, he buys and sells stuff. Like it's crazy.
I don't know anybody like that.
It's just amazing to me. And so he started buying these. He'd buy a saddle. I'd try it, give it back to him, and it'd be sold. Like, okay, well, that one didn't work for Kev, I guess. And we went through that whole process. I don't know how many of the saddles we tried, basically all of them. But, and then obviously Kev bought a sewing machine and he was just sewing saddles and giving them to us. And he's like, okay, we're going to hunt out of these now. And it's when it finally became a real thing. And then we started to develop the final product. So.
So what's interesting to me is like the way that I found out about your company, right? And I don't know if I was already following. I don't think I was following you guys on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. And I had bought the Austin that does Genesis 3D printing, and that's gone like explosive right now. And we got to get him in here. I told him that when I met him. But so I ordered a couple of the tenders from him, and not because I necessarily wanted to see a tender, because I had tried one from the Double Step or Eastern Woods Outdoors from Dano, and it didn't really work for me. I had a Ropeman, but I was trying to figure out like how it worked versus the Ropeman, and basically to give information. And I saw that he was in Ravenna, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from here. And so I was like, oh well, I'll buy some of those for you. And I started following him, and then I saw him like repost something that was like, oh, from Latitude Outdoors, and I was like, oh, what the hell, So then I followed them, and one thing led to another. And then after we got back from ATA, I don't know who runs your Instagram, but somebody reached out to me and said, hey, we've got this prototype saddle. We want you to check it out. So John and I drove to Grand Rapids, met up with Kevin, and he showed us like one of their prototypes of the Method saddle. And we had our, input on it, like our critiques. Like, I guess since I always do the talking, John, what was your thoughts like when we sat in that saddle? I mean, yeah, there's a cricket in here.
That's me over here.
Wants to be on the podcast.
No, say that I was preoccupied with the cricket.
No, I was saying like, so when we met up with Kevin over there to try out the prototype saddle,
it was cold as fuck for one. And I only had a thin coat on, so I was freezing. Like,
do you remember you shaking a little bit?
Yeah, but I remember you had the carabiners on the bridge. Was the bridge, and you had it connected with carabiners. It was super, super comfortable, but that was just one of the things that was like, I try to get rid of the carabiners every chance I get. I usually do the girth hitch on one side, with my lineman, and so that was one of the issues. But besides that, it was, being two-piece, we're used to. I've only been saddle hunting for a year, so I'm not the best input on this, for this conversation. But just being with my experience, I started hunting on the trophy line, and that one, is completely different. It works great, but it was just, it's big and bulky when you're talking about going in and trying to get rid of some of the bulk when you're getting in deep. You're definitely not wearing a trophy line in the mud and stuff, because it's going to be covered because it hangs down so low and stuff. But that was definitely comfortable when we sat in it. And now, I didn't get a chance tonight with all the stuff that was going on. I didn't get a chance to get back in it. But I see that you've definitely addressed some of those issues.
And so for myself, like, what was interesting is the conversations that we were having. And I'm sure that it doesn't really matter at this point, but it was, you guys were kind of curious as to this setup, and it makes more sense now from you guys both having experience with the Anderson tree sling. And then that was what John Eberhardt, that was his bread and butter, and basically still is. And Tethered had a new products coming out, and from the Phantom was what it was, but with Eberhardt's, you wanted to know like how similar was it to this, because he hunted out of an Anderson tree sling. That's where you guys kind of cut your teeth, or your first experience with saddles. And so sitting in that one, from where it was to what it is right now, and John's got one right in front of him. We're videoing this for YouTube, so you can check out the video podcast, and we'll have Kevin and Alex kind of go through the two different models. But they've got it so that there's no metal at all, or at least an option of it that is no metal at all. And there's a couple features on it that are pretty slick. And the bulk on both of these saddles is like nothing. So I don't know if you want to talk about your saddles and kind of outline them and show it for the video portion of this, but it's interesting to me because one, it's the Method, correct? Is the
Correct
flagship saddle, right? Is a 2-piece. That one has like less bulk and it's a 2-piece. It folds together. But the other one, which is what's the name of that one?
The Classic.
The Classic.
Yep.
Classic. So that one, like when you're wearing that one, it feels like you're not wearing anything. Like it was an interesting evening for me because I was literally there was a dozen different saddles laying on the ground and all sorts of ropes and all sorts of shit laying around because people, for real, like people want to know like what's the difference between this one and this one and this one, and you just can't go somewhere, generally speaking, and see all that stuff. So I just put on a saddle, this one or that one, and I'd climb up and I'd stand and people would be asking questions and I'd be telling them and talking about, we could have an hour discussion on the different types of ropes that are there and the reasons why this one versus this one versus this one and, cost and price points and stuff like that. So I was throwing on a saddle and getting up there and, when I was in that Classic, it was like I forgot I was wearing a saddle. I was just up there swinging around and then I was standing around talking, wearing it. And there was like literally like nothing on. And that was what was the most interesting to me. And so I've had that experience before, not to that degree, but, and you guys can speak to this but as soon as I put pouches and stuff on it, then it started to drag and weigh down and here and there. So, if you guys can go through the differences between those, and then we'll kind of break that down.
I'll let you speak to it first because I'm the engineer and I'll overcomplicate it. I'll fill in the gaps after you.
Yeah. Okay. So the Method, right? It's sorry. So this is the Method, and this is our 2-piece design. It's honestly a modern Anderson sling, right? And the point of this, I guess, in my mind, and the reason that, when he came to me with this crazy prototype and I was like, that makes sense, is because you can be really compact walking in, but you can still get that comfort in the tree. The only other way to really achieve that comfort with a single piece saddle is you have to have a big one, right? Because you have certain pressure points in your hips, and I'm not going to give it an anatomy lesson, but there are really two main pressure points, right? It's the top of your femur bone, and it's the top of your hips here. This is called the iliac crest. The goal of this, when Kev showed me this, that's immediately where my mind went, and that's how we developed this saddle. This is developed to take those pressure points off of those areas. So with a traditional single-piece saddle, the straps, and that's where you get all your pressure, actually fall right on those two pressure points. And that's something that was kind of a no-brainer for us, and that's where we really ran with what Kev's concept was and just turned it into a modern product. But it made perfect sense in my head, and that's what the Method is today, and that's what drove that design.
Yeah, and there's some other advantages to the 2-piece design too. You don't have a fixed size like a single panel. I think anyone that's sat in kind of a modern day saddle that's a single panel design, you generally have to wear it kind of low, like you're sagging when you're up in the tree, right? Kind of right below the waistline to make sure it's properly cupping your rear end. If you don't do that, it tends to want to ride up, and other companies have tried to address that problem in different ways. The challenge is because it's a fixed piece, once you move it down, you're sacrificing support in that lower back area. We all have athletic backgrounds on our team, and that lower back support region is very important for us. And with the 2-piece design, you don't lose that. because you can move both the top piece and the bottom piece, you can put both right where they need to be for your body type and shape. And if you're doing a long sit, you can move them around and get them where they need to be to get comfortable. You know, it really helps with posture in the tree. In particular, you think about, you know, any like pro weightlifter or whatever the terminology is, or if you're doing squats and, you know, lots of heavy lifts and powerlifting and that kind of thing, those guys are all wearing weight belts. They're doing that for a reason, because they need support in that lower back region. Helps them have proper posture. They're more comfortable. They're more safe. So, you know, if you're a guy that has back problems, this is probably something that's a little bit different that might help you out. Because when you do move that one-piece design under your butt, and I'm not saying that's bad for everyone. There's a lot of people that prefer that and will continue to prefer that. That's why we offer both. But what was that?
It's podcasting 101.
Podcasting 101. We've got some alarms going off.
You need to turn that on silent.
But yeah, I mean, the core of what drove going to this two-piece concept, and we didn't invent the two-piece concept. We just, I guess, souped it up, right?
Perfected it? Is that what you just said?
I didn't say that. Nope. No, we're always chasing perfection, right? Never achieving it. But there's always something to aim for on the horizon. But in that regard, it's really just, you know, the flexibility to dial in comfort for you personally. You know, because these things, they should wear jeans. Think how many different trims or styles of jeans are offered by a single company these days. And it's a textile product. It's a clothing type of product. So it needs to wear for you in multiple situations, whether that's hiking in, climbing, or hanging in the tree.
So let's talk about materials, because yours is a little bit different materials here, there, and everywhere. If you want to talk about that.
Good.
Materials.
Yeah. So we can run you through them. On the method, pretty standard. We use a seatbelt webbing. We use a little bit different size. It's a little more compact, and we can get away with that from a strength and safety standpoint because there are 4 straps. So a traditional single panel saddle obviously sort of has, basically makes an oval with the webbing, right? You have 2 straps coming off of each hip. With the two-piece design, you have 4. So we actually slim that down a little bit to help with the weight savings, but it's actually stronger if you add up the 4 straps than a two-piece design. You know, our mesh, we went with a heavier grade polyester mesh. When I say heavy weight-wise, there's not a big difference, but when you get this in hand, it's a little stiffer, especially initially out of the package. So it helps hold the shape better. That helps, you know, reduce fabric bunching. In particular, when you got a two-piece design, each of our pieces is a little bit smaller, and that's intentionally designed that way because you can actually distribute the weight and get the coverage you're looking for with less material to save weight. But our mesh is a little heavier than what you're going to notice, you know, in things that are existing on the market. It's a polyester. It's going to last forever. It's very UV resistant, so you don't have to worry about that fabric wearing out. One of the interesting things, in addition to that, from a material standpoint that we've done, is we've actually added additional rigidity to the design and in the vertical direction. And here I go with my engineering terminology, but you'll notice if you're watching the video version of this, we basically have some vertical, lines in the structure of our saddle, which is a little bit unique. And what that is that's a very stiff type of webbing. It's similar to what's used in like a rigger's belt or a scuba belt. Guys, you know, this material is used in rappelling harnesses. But basically what that does is it ensures that the saddle holds its shape at all times while you're wearing it, which is particularly important in the tree. And I don't know what it is, but when I added that to the design, my initial, you know, thinking was I want to make sure the straps are going to stay where I want them to. But there's something about how the weight is distributed in that direction that just feels a little bit different. It feels a little bit more like a chair, I guess, or like a tree stand seat, something on, you know, like a lone wolf type of hang on. And to me, that adds a little bit more comfort as well.
So, Kev, just to clarify, What he means by that is keeping this distance consistent. Because when this gets under you, and this is something we didn't just think of, right? This is something that our field testers told us. They said, and this happens with all saddles, is you have material bunching anytime this gets under you. And this cut, people always talk about the cupping shape, right? The shape of the saddle. I guess preserving the integrity of that shape is extremely important to the comfort of this seat, so to speak. So these seem like a simple little thing, but Kev, I mean, it made a big difference when he added those, and it was an immediate, like, we got to add those. So we added those on the Classic as well. So, this is something different that you just don't see in the other single panel saddles. So.
And so do you guys have a patent on that, or do we need to do something for this?
Oh, of course. Everything's patent. Everything's patent. I'm just
kidding. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of wrap up on the material side, the Molly webbing that ultimately makes the lineman loops, it's 4,000 pound webbing. It's pretty similar in terms of what you see in the market. The weakest material in the saddle structure itself is 4,000 pound. On the metal-free version, we have a waist belt made out of Oplux rope or Oplux rope, tomato there, and how you like to pronounce that. Obviously, that's become a very, very popular rope in the saddle hunting market for tethers and lineman belts, for its sheer reduction in bulk without sacrificing strength. It's almost a 6,000 pound minimum breaking strength rating. It's really lightweight. And we actually were able to use that and accomplish a waist belt out of it. And we can get more into that. So that we could create a saddle that has no metal on it at all. And you mentioned that earlier, Adam. But that's actually all of our favorite model to use. You would think maybe just a piece of rope as a waist belt's not going to hold it up. It actually holds it up better. It actually cinches down tighter. And what we found, and this is again field testing feedback as well, are confirmed by that. Most guys are wearing some sort of a belt when they're hunting, and a buckle over a buckle makes noise, isn't comfortable. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong or just, not work out well. If you wear this rope belt, it sits right on top of your existing belt, and that helps hold it up. You can cinch it tighter. It's a climbing rated knot. Most people probably don't realize, but even if you've got a 4,000 pound rated buckle on 4,000 pound webbing, that's still your weakest link in terms of something that could fail, because that buckle can cut that webbing ultimately. It still isn't going to happen for, it takes quite the fall to cause that to happen, but that goes away with a rope belt. So just from a safety standpoint, there's a small advantage there as well.
So for any normal people out there listening to this, the rope belt, right? Everybody complains about your saddle sagging down. That's because your what are they called? Your sliders on the buckles and stuff, as you move in gaps, it anytime you have a gap behind that, it slowly wiggles itself out. This knot will not do that, and so we immediately wanted to add that as an option.
Again, back to the materials, you're running an Oplux bridge, and then it has an AM steel prusik on both sides, right?
Correct.
And so what made you, how did that come about? And is there anybody else that's running an Oplux? I think maybe Arrow Hunter has like that as an option, because they have options, whether it's web or AM steel or Oplux, right? So how did you guys end up with the combination with Oplux bridge and then AM steel prusiks on the sides?
You were the first one to suggest it and try it, so you want to answer first?
Yeah, well, I mean, we knew that we needed to add adjustability on the bridge, right, so that you can, the market just says that you need to have that as a feature. It's an obvious thing, right? And that allows you to increase pressure from above or below. So we needed a way to do that, right? You see Tethered in the Phantom has their comfort channels, and so we had to sit down and be like, how are we going to accomplish this? Eventually, we kind of naturally ended up at this double Prusik knot style. I think, does H2, do they do a double Prusik like this as well?
Some similar ones out there with AM steel, yeah.
And then I think it's H2, but somebody sells a kit for for doing just that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's, we would never claim that this is some revolutionary thing, right? This is just a solution that we needed to add. And obviously we added some stuffing in here. You actually have more oplux in the bridge loop itself. And that allows this to actually cinch down so that it doesn't move on you. And it's actually even more beneficial because when you come off pressure, you never lose your position of your adjustment here, if that makes sense.
Okay, so to that point, just real quick, I know Kevin wants to nerd out on us real quick, but I'm gonna kind of
in my face.
I'm gonna kind of temper that just a hair. But by making that bridge loop compressible, does that essentially allow for the same thing as a comfort channel? So are you able to move that pressing up and down and then create that same thing, be it maybe not so much in the moment as just 1-2, but the flip side of that would be it's 100% instead of having 4 options?
Yes. Short answer would be yes. It helps you accomplish sort of distributing that weight higher or lower in the saddle, whether that's the single or the double panel versions. I guess, so the bridge loops themselves, we stuffed them with the Oplix rope because a Prusik is designed to work on a circular rope, right? And if you look at most bridge loops on saddles, they're flat, right? And so what happens is once they tighten down, they're really hard to then adjust after you sat in it. This will tighten down and stay where it needs to be, but when you have to adjust it, you can actually adjust it much easier on the fly, right? So that's the difference between comfort channels versus, kind of this double Prusik option that exists out there. This helps kind of close that gap in terms of how quickly and easily you can do that because it doesn't kind of get stuck on like it would on a flat style bridge. So it really functions like a giant piece of rope at the end of the day.
And also then, like you're saying, it stays when you take pressure off.
Exactly.
Like where I've got up in my Phantom and the loops come out of the comfort channel slot. But
John, you don't have to be timid about it. It's what happened. Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I haven't, I have my Phantom, but I haven't hunted. I've only spent, a few hours.
Few hours you spent probably. If I were to guess how much time John has spent in the Phantom, it is more than 10 and less than 30. And I mean that's
It's
serious
a decent amount of time.
because, like I said, when we were in the show, like John's got back problems. For him to just stand around for 12 hours a day, it was better for him to just click up and hang on in the saddle. And I mean that. However, that translates to tree stand hunting, for guys that have back problems, I mean,
yeah, I don't know how many people come up to me, and ask, well, I got a bad back. I'm like, yeah, you're not telling me anything. I've had 4 back surgeries, I can't feel half my left leg. So to be able to hunt all day or spend that amount of time in a tree, the saddle has definitely been a game changer for me. So. And now with all these new options coming out, it's getting even better. So.
Absolutely.
And so for the new options coming out and all of that, you guys got it firsthand today. For the new saddle hunter, right? There's so many options. There's so much information available, albeit good, bad, skewed. So how would you say for them if Alex, they don't have a Kevin saying, here, because it's a big investment, right? And we talked about that a lot today with the guys that were here, prior to the podcast. It's easy for John to say, that looks really stupid. Oh, let me try yours. Okay, get me one, or Alex to say, all right, Kevin, give me the next one. This is what I don't like about it. What do you say to those new saddle hunters, or how do you direct them, or what would be your advice from your standpoint going through this journey?
I think that one of the big things is to not let yourself get overwhelmed, because the amount of information on this stuff makes this seem like it's rocket science, and it's not. It's not that complicated.
Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I take that to heart. We'll add that to the next one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Anyway, so it's not that complicated. You just have to decide what you want, and really you're deciding between two things, and this is something that we're trying to solve with the method, but there's all different options, and they can all fill your needs. But you just got to decide what you want. Do you want to be super comfortable in the tree and go with something that's larger, right? Has a larger seat to it, or do you want to go with something that's going to allow you to be more compact? And I think that, I know that for us, we're trying to create a hybrid option, right? And that's what the method is. But with that being said, it's not going to be right for everybody. But I think choosing what you want in your saddle, what is the most important thing to you? Do you want to be super lightweight and super compact, or do you want to be more comfortable in the tree? And that's going to narrow down your options right off the bat, and that's going to send you down a path, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say you've got to look at your own personal style. I mean, do you really need to save weight? Do you need to, are you a rut hunter? You sit all day, 10 days in a row. What makes you successful as a hunter, and then do your research, pick a saddle that looks like it marries the best to your style, and then just dive in and try it. I mean, like Alex said, I buy and sell stuff all the time. I still do that, right? I've got different reasons maybe now for doing that, but right. And I would say do that now, because you can sell a saddle pretty easily right now. It's obviously growing very quickly in popularity, and there's more and more options every day, but getting in and out of something just to try it. It's pretty easy to sell a saddle if you've purchased it. You don't need to drop $600 on a saddle setup. That's partly why we wanted to offer an option at a little bit lower price point than the method as well. Just dive in and find something, that marries best with what makes you, productive as a hunter. So.
Or you can just call Adam and he'll send you a saddle.
Yeah.
One of his personal ones.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, just take it, try it.
Well, so for our Patreons, that's 100% true. Like so I try to have firsthand knowledge and, to be able to speak on these things. And so my Mantis has literally been to South Dakota, Louisiana. Sorry, Brandon. I think it was Maryland, and it's in New York right now. I actually got a message today that it says that it's in New York, but those were just the ones that I had. Of the saddles that I had, I thought that would fit these guys, and they're the ones that they had questions on. So, and I think it was more of a price point thing, because with the Phantom coming out, the Mantis was, Tethered has the greatest marketing team known to man as far as saddle hunting is concerned. And the Mantis is now their price point saddle. I mean, they've got a new one coming out. I don't know if you guys know about that. It's Menace. So that's going to undercut the Mantis as far as price point, but it folds up to nothing. So this is what guys know. This is what they're hearing. And those are the questions that they have. But yes, you're right. If for our Patreons that are listening, if you want to know about a saddle, the ones that were here today can attest to, like, I got them all. So except for arrow hunters, like I don't have any experience with arrow hunters. So on that note, for you guys, what is your competition as far as on the method, and what does yours offer over that? I know the answer, but I want to hear from you.
So from strictly a price point, perspective, right? You're looking at the Arrow Hunter saddles and the Phantom, right? And then for the classic, you've got H2, Cruiser, Mantis. This is priced at $185 right now, right?
Yep.
So price point, that's obviously pretty black and white. Now, in terms of functionality, there's, I guess, the new Eberhard series saddle, which is going to be, it's basically an Anderson sling, right? And if that ever actually is released, that's obviously going to be a competitor to this. It's much more traditional in design. So, but with that being said, we said it earlier, right? We believe in the two-piece saddle. So that's going to be one of our big competitors because we truly believe in that design and its advantages. So I guess that's the simple answer to that.
Well, but I mean, I guess isn't there? I don't know if it's still in production, but why I was asking is because I've talked to multiple guys who have switched and had a lot of interest in the Phantom for the ability, for the comfort aspect of it, that are switching over from an Arrow Hunter Evolution because of all of the, for lack of a better term, fucking around they got to do with all the pieces.
Yeah, so we haven't tried an Evolution, but when we obviously have seen that, and we're like, that looks pretty nice. Like, I might like to sit in that, but
chair in the air.
Yeah, the problem with it, right, is it lacks that simplicity and that minimalistic, compact fit when you're wearing it in, because part of the, one of the biggest challenges with hunting is your hike in, right? Especially if you're hunting public land and you're trouncing through a swamp. I mean, you should see what Kev walks through. It's disturbing, honestly. And so we believe in that two-piece design, but it had to be optimized, right? There's some modern features that have to be used because it just makes sense.
Yeah, I would say, we've mentioned the Anderson sling a few times, and there's no doubt that's been a comfortable option for a long, long, long time. In terms of making something that's two pieces, very, very, very user-friendly and simple to use, I think that's what's really where we've tried to separate with what we've done with the Mantis. If you got two pieces to manage, that sounds like more going on, right? And we've tried to take a two-piece saddle and make it as simple, if not simpler, in many aspects than just a one-piece saddle, right? The two pieces, they hook together. How do they hook together? They hook together very, very easily with a set of Kydex clips, right? And there's a little loop they hook into. You can do it with one hand in the dark. That gets rid of, the flopping around, managing different seatbelt straps, a lot of the things that the older traditional designs have. We've just tried to make it as seamless as possible to use from the moment you leave your truck or your vehicle to the moment you get back to it, right? And, every part of that process is a little bit different and has a little bit different, I guess, design requirements, speaking as the engineer. And we tried to tackle each of those individually without sacrificing or causing too many trade-offs to the other, aspects of your hunt. So I think it's really the comfort's the core to the design, but making that really, really user-friendly with two pieces is what makes this different to me.
And John, Alex told me earlier, and it's something that Kevin left out. I don't know if he designed the Kydex clips or what the deal is, but because if he did, he definitely missed the boat on this one. He said they double as you can hang your sticks right off.
No, that's the marketing guy. Okay,
it's his idea.
He doesn't.
His idea. I give it to him.
But I'm just saying, you know exactly why that would be beneficial. I mean, if you've got that already, you can just hang your sticks right off it as you're going up the tree. It's built right in as a functionality. piece of it.
Well, I'd say, Alex tests us in the engineering department because he's one of those guys that it's got to work perfectly out of the package. He's not a tinkerer. He's not a DIY guy. He doesn't tape his sticks. I can't believe how much they clink when he shows them to me. It drives me absolutely insane. But the good thing about that is that, he drives simplicity and function into our design. So if I give something to Alex, I got to know that he can use it easily and well, I guess. So he's a good measuring stick in that regard. Because I'm probably not the best measuring stick because I overthink things probably.
Well, this happens with every organization, right? Like an engineer it's like certain things are very easy in their head. Like this isn't cumbersome. This isn't annoying. All I have to do is do this.
Right.
But for me, some of the things that are simple to him, for him, you give to me and I'm like, dude, I would never use that. like come on.
Well, I mean, I point at John, here, and I bought a set of Wild Edge steps. I bought some primals. You guys seen what was out there for climbing sticks as far as like, I can break down climbing sticks.
Everything.
Like one, but I bought those. I tried them a couple times. I tried them on pine trees and it just wasn't working. And I was like, absolutely not. And then John's like, "Why? I'm gonna try those." And that's what he used for his platform. And he's like, "The knot is so easy. You just do this, do this, and
you do it in the dark.
You can't over.
That's it.
And I'm like, right? No, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing."
Yeah. So I think just to summarize, one of the things that causes for myself and our other partner Jake when we're building stuff for Alex to use is if we're going to add something, if we can make it perform more than one function, we're going to do that, and that's what we did with the clips, right? So they're there to hold the bottom piece, make sure this is as streamlined as possible, and nothing's going to blow up, kind of turn into a mess on your way in, or even when it's just in your car or your bag. But, they're also going to carry your sticks or your platform. Obviously, a lot of guys are already doing that by adding clips. So why not make it perform that function as well?
Right. And, I mean, I guess that could be a breakdown between John, myself, and then Uncle Frank is like, that's that level of how easy is it to use. Now,
Uncle Frank would have like the kitchen sink strapped to it. And his underwear for the next week.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Like, we need to do like very soon another episode of our elk hunt because of the stuff that he's putting like in his pack. I'm like, are you serious? And I feel like when I was going into it and like the amount of shit that we took the last time that we went and like the amount of things that we actually used, I mean, I'm like, are you sure you need both those sets of long underwear? And he's like, well, what happens if this? And I'm like, you are fucking crazy.
That's funny because on my trip up north, I just got back from the guy I was up there with. He's my hunting partner. From here heading out to Montana, and he's completely clueless. Like he went out and hunted Montana 2 years ago when Ab and I were in Idaho. And it was a like base camp hunt, from a cushy trailer. Like my buddy Eddie out there has one of those Logan freaking horse trailers that's like a freaking,
nice.
I mean, the Taj Mahal. Yeah.
Wow.
Like it's got everything in there, slide outs. Like it's not camp, it's glamping. But anyway, so that's what they hunted out of. And then they would just take, day trips out.
Sure.
And so
that sounds awesome.
He's like, oh yeah, he brought his case of Budweiser, and I'm like, yeah, this trip's nothing like that, Mark. Are you gonna pack my beer in for me? I'm like, yeah, that's not even an option. But so we were up there and we did the hike around 11-mile hike around the Pictured Rocks, and I wore my pack with all my stuff in, my jet boil, not that I was going to need any of that, but it was just
weight,
Sure.
Just bulk, everything, just getting used to it. And he was like, you can wear that? I'm like, yeah. Him and his wife had a little backpack, and they took turns carrying that. I'm like,
You're going to have to put him on your back.
I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, Mark. Well, then today we did the dune hike with, I had my heavy pack. I took some of the stuff out.
60?
No, I was right around 40 or whatever. Yeah, I'm not doing 60 on the dunes. No.
40 on the dune sounds rough.
And so we were walking up the first dune, and he was like, "Why are you wearing the pack?" I'm like, "Well, why are you not wearing a pack?" He's like, "Well, what's the difference?" I'm like, "Never mind, dude."
Put my pack on.
Yeah. I'm like, when we were out elk hunting, and I'm like, if we're going in 4 miles with our camps on our back, you got to carry the shit. And your muscles have to be used to it. I mean, you can't just throw a 40-pound pack on. And that's very light for a 4-day hunt. 40 pound, you're talking ultra light.
Water, frickin',
Right.
2
He's
pounds of food a day. Like,
Even on our walk, the one hike, he's like, I'm going to quick drink all my water so I don't have to carry it.
That's great.
But anyway, we got off track.
That's funny.
Yeah.
so, have you got anything else on these, packability, price point, frickin',
Does it come as a kit? Is there a starter kit? What's your,
Yes.
Yeah.
All of the above.
oh,
Yeah, so we, just like just about everybody, we sell them separately as just the saddle. So if you already have your ropes, you can buy just the saddle. But we have kits as well that include the lineman belt and the tether. Those are both Oplux with the Swabish hitch and the black diamond carabiners. The carabiners are sweet, and that's just a little detail, but they are really sweet. They're tiny little things, and they weigh just about nothing. You can, for anybody who doesn't know about the Swabish hitch, it's one-hand adjustable, which is why Jake and Kev went that route, because we really designed this to take away the need for a rope man or a Kong duck or a roll and lock. We sell the roll and locks. So, but really, if somebody asked me what should they use with their ropes, I'd say, man, you got to just use the Swabish hitch because it's super simple and super lightweight, and it saves you some money too.
Yeah, that's nothing new. It's just I don't know if anyone is actually selling that in that configuration yet. There's a lot of guys DIYing that. So I think you mentioned earlier in the night, Adam, you can put that on us to make sure that the knots are tied correctly when you buy it. But in terms of the kit, I think this is a really important point for us. When we discuss the kit, most kits out there come with pretty bulky ropes. And then you see a lot of upgrading to the Oplux eventually. And we wanted to just eliminate that and give you the best thing right out of the gate, in our opinion.
So a couple things. So yeah, what I said was you can build this kit for $40, or you can buy it from them for $60. But if you die, like, your wife can sue them, versus like saying I told you so.
That's a better description. Yeah.
But what I was going to show John is, like, I don't know if you paid attention though, but looking at this and the flexibility of this rope and the length of their stitch, you can girth hitch it without it being. And so one of the things is like everything. So Trophy Line's ropes are stitched, and you cannot girth hitch them without getting into the sheath and the stitching. And tethers are buried and stitched and sheathed, and unless you buy their tether, you can't do that. So like when we gave away our Phantom, I bought 2 tethers and an extra carabiner because that's what I would want, right? And this comes, and you guys don't sell 2 different ropes. It's the same rope. It just comes one with 2 carabiners, one without.
Correct.
So, I think that's an important point, because that's looking at the end user and how they're going to use it and what they're going to use it. And this Swabish hitch, like, does not. Seriously, like, you can just move it back and forth. And I saw John like eyeballing it, saying like, "This ain't gonna hold me." Like, for real, but it moves like super easy and it bites just as hard. And it balls up to nothing. So I'm switching to Oplux this year. I was doing it anyways, and I was going to do it myself. But I mean, the fact that they sell it just like this is what I'm going to be going with. Simply from the packability standpoint, I don't know how well it washes poison ivy off because that's a fucking bane of my existence. But that's going to be.
I'm in the same boat.
That's going to be that. But the reason I was asking you that was because, I mean, we're getting ready to close this out. I got like one last thing that's like going to take about an hour and a half or 2 hours. Kevin, the safety on these. So when we're talking about new startups, saddle companies, that are just jumping in to make a buck and they're sewing them in their garages and whatnot. So like when we talk about safety, what are you guys doing as far as safety and, all the standard, lack of standard, etc.?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you these aren't being sewn in a basement. That's an important point probably to start with. I mean, we're all in on this company and these products. I mean, our names are on the line with these products. That's how we're approaching this. They're manufactured in Michigan on the east side of the state with a manufacturer that's been sewing textiles for over 20 years in multiple industries that are already held to really high standards, including the auto industry, which, with seatbelts and such, they've been doing that for a long, long time. So we've already had a few comments on social media from customers getting their product, just, the quality of the stitching and the product. We've been just as impressed as our customers. We've been working with this manufacturer for about a year and a half. We included them in the design process because, we had some learnings along the way in terms of how these are manufactured at scale. So they're not being sold in a basement. They're being sold under high quality control standards with a professional manufacturer here in the United States. I think that's an important point to make because we can pop in any day of the week and make a minor adjustment to where this stitching is located or what have you. There's been a lot of that on the front end. So in terms of maintaining a high quality product over the, for everyone that's coming out the door, that's absolutely critical in our minds. And I think that's showing through with the product thus far to date. In terms of safety testing, we've had them third party tested. I know that's always the big question. Everyone out there thinks there's only one company that's done that. We've done that in the same facility. There's obviously standards being worked on right now. They don't yet exist. I think that's a rat hole in itself, but, your last podcast, one of your last couple podcasts with Jason Red from Timber Ninja, I think he really hit the nail on the head in terms of where that's at, where that's going. And he's obviously got a really long history and background in safety equipment in that industry. But this has been tested, in a third-party facility. It's not just been dropped out of a tree in our backyard. It's being manufactured professionally. And, we have confidence in the world and to maintain those standards. And we check everything before it goes out the door. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Alex.
Nope.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I don't know. You obviously left it out for a reason, but you're in, on the conversations with creating the standard for saddles, correct?
Correct.
So it's not like because this standard doesn't exist, like we talked about with Jason, that you guys are saying we're not trying to, we'll wait for the standard. You're being proactive in the thing. So how are you going about doing that?
So exactly what Jason said, just because a standard doesn't exist doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing some testing, right? And I think the question goes back to what are you testing? Are you testing if it's going to fail? And if you are testing, and when I say fail, I say a structural fail of the actual product itself. And then what standard are you measuring against for that failure? In what circumstance? Is it a circumstance that matches exactly how the product is being used or should being used? Standards are only held, are measured against a standard that's defined in terms of how the product is used and what might occur within that use. So I think, again, back to Jason, he mentioned, the difference between restraint and fall protection, right? That's still being worked on. I agree with that statement. And in terms of how we've tested this to see if it would fail material or structural failure in a similar fashion to like a fall 5-point harness for a tree stand. Is that test relevant for a saddle in terms of how it's used? Likely not, but that's still up in the air. And why is it likely not? Without going too far into the details, basically the human body starts to break at a certain point in terms of how much force it receives, given a specific type of fall. And, a standard for a different product will fail if those forces are exceeded beyond a certain point. The product itself might not break, but it can still fail the test. So you can kind of see it's a gray area right now in terms of how that's being defined. So to us, we've tested to make sure it's not going to break if you did exhibit a fall or a fall occurred while you're in the tree. I'll leave it at that.
And so why is that such a, I guess, why did you pursue that to such a degree that doesn't exist?
Rephrase the question.
So the standard doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Why are you guys pursuing something that doesn't exist?
Peace of mind, right? I mean, if we're going to put people on a tree, we would never sell something to somebody that we're not 100% confident in and wouldn't hang in ourselves. I mean, that's just being a responsible human, I think. We don't want to get sued, So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, you're going to see certain marketing strategies come out here, and it's going to be done in a way that's going to try to weed out some other companies. And it obviously costs a significant amount of money to get your stuff tested, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to see certain strategies from certain companies that are going to try and weed out those smaller companies. And so in a way, it's part of our strategy as well. But the number one main point is we don't want to sell, a device that's going to harm people. I mean, this is a serious device. We don't want anybody to get hurt. We want people to be happy with our products because this is what we want to do long term. If we get sued because we kill somebody, this is all over, right? I mean, we're kind of starting to live the dream here, and we want to continue down that path.
You really took it to the end of the line with that comment.
Well, I'm just, it's pretty simple, right?
I mean, this is a really serious product, guys. You're hanging up in the air. I guess if you're John Eberhardt, you're 40 feet up in the air. If I don't know where you hunt at, maybe 10 or 12. But
sticks are expensive. I'm just
yeah, exactly. Two this year, maybe 3 next year. We'll keep working our way up. But we talked through the materials. Those we're very selective in those for a reason, and then we wanted to prove out our selections and how they are put together. Just because you've got a 6,000-pound seatbelt webbing doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hold together during a fall. How is that constructed? So we're very tedious in all aspects, really, of everything. I mean, we don't have Jake here, but the three of us argue all the time.
Constantly.
Oh, my goodness. Like, to get to this point, there's just a lot of critiquing each other and critiquing what we've built. And
checks and balances. It's like the government.
Yeah, basically the House and the Senate. I don't know who's who for us, but yeah. We're gonna put our name on it. We're gonna make sure that every stone has been turned over and there's no questions.
They answered all my questions. Oh, the one question I always ask.
He's got one goddamn question.
Well, I didn't know we were at
up here.
I didn't know we were at this point. Yeah, we were still talking. But the question I always ask our guests is, "What's your bow setup? What are you shooting?
Yeah.
What are you shooting? Arrows, all that." So whoever wants to go first.
I guess I'll go first. I'm shooting the Matthews Traverse. I bought that last year in the stone gray color. Love that. You like all the trinkets, right? So we'll go through the trinkets. Just added the black gold Pro Sight this year. Still getting that dialed in. I didn't mention, but I tore my right pectoral muscle in February, both ligaments that attach it to your shoulder. So I just started shooting again about a month ago. I think I've lost my kisser button. I got a rotated peep. I'm trying new stabilizers. I got like a 10-inch bar on the front
I try to avoid.
and an 8-inch bar in the back, and I don't even have my 20-yard pin dialed in yet. So, how many days till season?
You got to get going.
I don't know. That's what I'm shooting.
Yeah, Frank's got 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm way, way, way behind. I was going to tinker with arrows this year. Snort some of the fairy dust, all of that. Not going to happen, I don't think. We're gonna fling some arrows that I shot last year. But no, I like that setup a lot. It's been a great shooting bow for me for the last year and a half, however long it's been.
Sweet.
Yeah. Let's see. Up until last year, I was using the same bow I got when I was 13 years old. It's the best bow ever. It's killed a lot of deer. It finally I couldn't draw without it falling off the cam, so I don't know what happened to it, but it had a problem. So I finally upgraded, and I got the Hoyt RX3 right before the RX4 came out, of course. And I got it because it's light, and I'm out of shape and weak, and I like it because it's light. Arrows, I've used the same arrows. I don't think I've ever changed. I think every year I bring my arrow to the archery shop and I tell them to give me this and cut it, and they just give it back. And I shoot Exodus broadheads, the little tiny fixed blade ones. Yeah. So
I'll just add, if you ever do meet us in person, whether it's at ATA this upcoming year, whatever it is, Alex is the resident killer on the team. I get him on camera. Jake gets him on camera. He doesn't get in the woods a lot the last couple of years, but he's the killer on the team. He's been doing it the longest. He's got a program, and he's got the bucks on the wall to show it. So ask him those type of questions.
Well, you can talk to Uncle Frank about the wall of shame over there.
Yeah.
See, like,
yeah.
Those ones just come running into frame.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Alex has been a mentor for me. He's, like I said, he's been doing it a lot longer than me. He kills a buck over 100 inches every year on public land in Michigan. So I've learned a lot from him. I think he's learned a lot from me on the gear side, maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah,
we're still teaching him. But,
yeah.
You can see he's got a bow. It works. That's kind of his answer, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably for a reason.
And that's what I find interesting. And I mean, I think maybe Joe Rentmeester has been the only one to say, like, wait a minute, like, what? Because I feel like, and John, maybe you can speak to this, but like, we've been doing this long enough that we talk like bow setups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that like know all their bows like in and out, they change it every year, they might not be the killers. And the guy that has the bow that from like 1985, they shoot their bow. They shoot their deer at 15 yards, and they have a setup that works. They stick with it, and they're like, I don't know what it is.
Well, they never have a problem, right?
Right.
If you don't have a problem, you can't change. There's no reason to change. So,
and you're the simplicity guy. So now, all right. So from that standpoint, just because we're talking about you're shooting arrows from when you were 13. When do you pull your bow out of the case and start shooting it?
That's what I was going to
Well, so
all right. So now we're good.
Here we go.
I've this year I made a point to get it out, and it's I need to do this better. I think you should absolutely practice shooting your bow as much as possible, and so I've made a point to do that more. I've shot a lot more this year than I ever have in the past. So, and I'm not proud to say that either, but life is busy. So I'm usually scrambling kind of like Kev right now. But this year, again, I made a point, probably part of the whole pandemic thing. I've had a little more time. I also live in like this overcrowded neighborhood outside of Detroit, Michigan. And it's just, I have nowhere to shoot. So now we set up this tiny slot. It's about 2 feet wide on the side of Jake, our other partner's garage. And so we're able to shoot up to 30 yards through that little shot.
In the neighborhood. There's a house behind that fence.
Yeah. We had
Put a little extra.
We got some yoga mats.
Is there a Jeep back there?
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
There's a garage.
Yeah.
My arrows are light as hell, though, so they won't...
neighbors.
Yeah, he's a speed shooter over here. He's a speed shooter.
Yeah. So where can people follow along with what you guys are doing, and if they want to check out, the saddles or like whatever?
Yeah, so we do our best to do the whole social media thing. If you get an email from me, my title says CMO, but that's just not the most appropriate title. It's just the last cool one left. So we do our best with getting the word out. I met a guy 2 weeks ago, and he goes, "I heard about you yesterday, and your stuff looks really cool." And I'm thinking in my head, like, that's terrible because we've been spending money on like Facebook ads trying to do that stuff. And
he's in Michigan, right up the road.
And he's
you missed that point.
Right in the
yeah
heart of. Anyway,
like a half
that's
mile
a
away.
whole nother story. But obviously, Facebook, Instagram, we are more than happy to meet anybody who needs to sit in a saddle because we understand that. So we're trying to meet anybody in person so they can try it. We do have some units going into Jay's Sporting Goods, so you'll be able to try them there as well in Gaylord and Clare. So we're hoping that helps some people, at least get the word out about us, but also
try before you buy.
Yeah, try before you buy. So that's that.
Yeah, and you can reach out to us anytime. We have, a link on the website, or we get a lot of messages through Facebook as well. We try to be as responsive as possible. We're answering a lot of questions while we're sitting on conference calls in our day job right now. So, but we also all work. I mean, I work in technology specifically right now. So if you want to do some sort of just a video call, if you don't live in Michigan, you want us to walk you through the stuff. There's actually a link on the website to send us a message to set up some time to do that as well. So again, we're trying to be as accessible as possible. We're trying to get product out the door as quickly as possible right now. We're very appreciative of everyone's patience in that regard. And
what's the website?
Website's latitudeoutdoors.com. That's
Okay.
Good point. We should mention that. So just the company named at .com, and search Latitude Outdoors on Facebook or Instagram. We're on there. Alex does most of those posts. And
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, guys. And, again, thanks for taking the time and driving all the way over here and making the time for us because, we're sitting in the pole barn here, we drinking beer, carrying on, but it's not like a big to-do.
Hey, we had a great time.
No, thank you for having us.
For
The
having
food
us.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Very accommodating. We really appreciate it, guys.
Happy to come hang out at the barbecue anytime. So
Yeah.
Thanks again. Yeah.
We'll look for the smoke on the horizon.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.